coming in round number 5.
And Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh here in Demars' deck. 4 copies of Titan Strength.
I'm a little surprised by this, but not like really, because this was one of the kind of holdovers that you could be doing, because the red cards are still good. They lost Lightning Strike, they lost Stoke the Flames, they lost Rebel Master, but as we saw with the last standard format, red had so many options that losing some stuff is actually okay.
And Demars he's playing a Tarka red, but he's much more into combo territory here. He's got 4 copies of Titan Strength alongside 3 copies of Become Immense and 3 copies of Teamer Battle Rage. So yes, he can play a normal 1-drop, 2-drop sort of game, but I think what he's really trying to do is combo out with a flurry of pump spells in 1 turn.
That's a 2-drop we haven't seen for some time there, the War Name Aspirant. That one got crowded out in a big way because there were better 2-drops than the previous
A lot
format.
of competition at 2.
Yeah.
Hard to block. Good-ish against Hangerback Walker.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a, you know.
Good-ish is apt.
Yeah.
Good-ish is apt.
I'm not saying it's great, but it's okay against Hangerback Walker.
Demars going to sacrifice the Wooded Foothills. I'll get a basic mountain out of the deck.
Boom.
Good-ish.
Yeah.
Good-ish.
Just, you got to fill out your curve somehow. Hangerback Walker is going to be one of the most common blockers you play against. If you can find threats that give you a little bit more game against Hangerback Walker, sure. But just be some other interchangeables who drop otherwise.
There's Wild Slash to take care of that. The follow-up is a Lightning Berserker, and here comes Zergo. Demars mostly known for his vintage gameplay. That said, a former Grand Prix champion at Grand Prix Boston Worcester back in 2012. Has been loving Affinity in Modern, and it looks like he's liking to beat down here in Standard. He's 4-0 and off to a pretty good start this game. Now, Paynter, he is playing a Tarka Red, and there's that Deadly Forest.
You have 1 copy in the list here, 8 mountains, 2 Cinder Glades, 10 fetch lands.
Yeah, that stinky forest is here again. Here's an Abbot. And
Oh,
Demars with the stinky forest.
brutal.
Yep. Here come the beatdowns. Can't even pump on the Lightning Berserker. Well, there's a timely copy of Wooded Foothills.
Demars could have hedged around that scenario by playing the land first and tapping the mountain in the forest, but of course, then if the Abbot reveals a land, he can't put it into play.
Yeah.
So Demars picking the high percentage play, but got punished for it.
Able to search for the Cinder Glade because 2 basics on the battlefield there for Paynter. Considering a Chandra, will cast it, pass the turn back. Chandra always felt like a pretty powerful card, but was just kind of crowded out by Rabble Master.
A lot of quality 3s, Hordeling Outburst.
Yeah. Just another attempt at Abbot perhaps here for Demars. Looks like it might be. No, he's considering something else here.
Well, he's got Wild Slash in hand, and he's almost certainly going to use Wild Slash on Chandra this turn. So if he plays Abbot first, there's just too many misses in his deck. Unless it's a 1-mana removal spell or a land, he's not going to put it into play. He's not going to allow Paynter here to untap with Chandra. So he may be better served using his mana some other way this turn if he can use it productively, and then trying to Abbot the following turn.
Let's see what that top card is. Copy of Titan Strength. This is kind of the problem you talk about now, where you kind of want to cast Titan Strength, but you kind of just want to cast Wild Slash. So now the Titan Strength that he did reveal to Abbot's going to be useless, for lack of a better term. He'll get a healthy amount of damage, but Titan Strength's gone for good.
And the problem there from Demars' side, I think the only other play he could have made was just a Tarka's Command attack you, which is, I think, pretty anemic. So I can appreciate Demars eventually settling on the Abbot, but he was trying to find some other line of play that would allow him to keep the Abbot in his hand.
Swiftspear will come down. Wild Slash will take care of Abbot. Pass the turn back. Swiftspear's back on defense. Demars will draw a card. Graveyard pretty full for a card like Become Immense at this point. Not hard for him to do. Swiftspear coming down. This will be a pretty good Tarka's Command turn. Tarka's Command is that card. This is
One of the best.
Yeah, it's no joke. It's
One of the best cards.
Really good right now.
Especially, you know, the sweepers. Cards like Drown in Sorrow, for example, they're no longer here.
Yep. The sweepers are pretty red focused now. You got Seismic Rupture, you got Radiant Flames,
Yeah.
stuff like that. I mean, this is too big of a hit for Paynter to take. He's just going to see the game. So Brian Demars is going to win game number 1 here over Devon Paynter. A Tarka Red Mirror right now goes to the player on the right, currently up a game. So we'll take a look at the sideboards here, and we will start with Devon. And he's got a Chandra, another one on the board to go along with the copies in the main deck, 2 Arc Lightnings, 2 Dragon Fodders, 2 Fiery Impulse, 3 Scab Clan Berserker, an Outpost Siege, and then this is actually a good one on the board, 4 Hangerback Walkers.
I think you can bring in the 4 copy. It just become a slower, more controlling deck here. Very common in red mirror matches. So you want late game trumps and more removal spells. I think the 2 copies of Arc Lighting, the 2 copies of Dragon Fodder, the 2 copies of Fire Impulse, the Outpost Siege, and the 4 copies of Hangerback Walker all facilitate that sort of game plan.
Other side of things, what do we have for Mr. Demars?
4 Hangerback Walker, 2 Thunderbreak Regent, 2 Rose, 3 Arc Lightning, 2 Fire Impulse, 2 Goblin Heel Cutter. Big fan of Arc Lightning, Thunderbreak Regent, and Hangerback Walker in this matchup. Fire Impulse can come in as well. So it's much the same deal. I think these players are going to be cutting a lot of their, Zergo and Lightning Berserker kind of threats, the stuff that just dies or trades, and become more focused on removal to keep their head above water early on in the game, and then play towards something big later on. For Devon, it's Outpost Siege, and for Brian, it's Thunderbreak Regent.
Well, both these players will shuffle up and get ready for a little bit more of the Atarka Red Mirror. But in the meantime, we will talk about Grand Prix Atlanta. Tournament that's coming November 13th through the 15th. It'll be Battle for Zendikar Sealed, but also a celebration of the Commander format.
Exactly. We're going to have a lot of guests and artists, big names in the Commander community who'll be there all weekend long for interviews, seminars, and just people you can hang out with during the event. Should be a lot of fun.
John Avon going to be the guest of honor. We'll have Benny Smith, MJ Scott, the godfather of Commander Sheldon Menery. Also the Commander versus crew, Stephen Green, baby.
I know. If you have not met Stephen Green in person, I suggest coming to Atlanta.
Ben Blyweiss, I think, said it best. He said, if you want to meet a real American,
Right.
go meet Stephen Green. November 13th through the 15th, you can do that and so much more. StarCityGames.com/GP Atlanta for more information. Get signed up today. Got to get it out of the way anyway.
Do it right now.
Yeah, pretty easy to do. Find the package you want and hashtag GP Atlanta and join in the conversation on social media as well. So get ready here for game number 2 between Devon Paynter and Brian Demars. I have a feeling that these two gentlemen know each other, given that Devon is wearing an RAW hobby shirt.
Yeah, it's a giveaway. Demars from the Detroit area.
That's correct. Both these players are RAW hobbies players. Both players playing very similar deck lists here with Hangerback Walkers in the sideboard.
Yes.
Perhaps they both brewed up in a Tarka Red deck together.
I mean, the lists are very, very close. It would not surprise me. I mean, Devon's got 1 copy of Call the Full Moon in his list, and some of the other pump spells are a little bit different, but the threat base looks very similar.
To me, this is really good week 1 deck. And also, the thing I like about this particular build of Atarka Red is it's got some things that are going to take you by surprise. I imagine both of these players have really gotten their opponent with Temur Battle Rage and or Become Immense.
This is what I like about the build of this deck, even though they're both a little bit different, is you can just win normal games of get out in front of you with some 1-drops and kill you with the target's command before you get anything going. They don't lose that element of the deck, but if the game bogs down, if people aren't thinking about all the cards that are out there, combo kills involving things like Become Immense and Temur Battle Rage are also possible. Typically not how I build my beatdown decks, but I can appreciate, I can win kind of on the level 1 way of a curve of creatures, some removal spells and some pump spells, or if things get weird or my opponent's not playing around everything, you can kill them out of nowhere.
Now, there will be some awkward draws involved.
Yes, I mean, there's 22 spells in this deck, 4 of which are removal. So in Demars' list I'm looking at here. So, excuse me, there's 4 of them are Dragon Fighters. So you have 14 pump spells on the list. 14's a lot.
Yep.
And the cost you pay is there's going to be some games where you have 1 or 2 threats in your hand, they get killed, and your hand's all pump spells. But the upside is you get some explosiveness and you get a little bit more power against people who are trying to block you out of the game.
That's the thing that's happened to Red here is, you're just missing out on pinpoint removal spells. You lost Lightning Strike, you lost Stoke the Flames. Neither of these lists have access to Exquisite Firecraft, which is a little bit surprising.
Well, I mean, week 1, I think Exquisite Firecraft is a little incongruous with what this deck is going on with. It needs a critical mass of creatures, and then it's really in the market for pump spells.
Okay.
And Exquisite Firecraft is pretty expensive, and it doesn't really synergize with any of the primary plans. So, and with no Courser Crufix to kill, what's the 4 toughness threat you're really gunning for?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Butcher of the Horde isn't that big yet. Doesn't kill Siege Rhino.
It's also a sorcery, so it's not necessarily great against Butcher of the Horde.
Also true.
Because they can still have big turns with it.
Courser's gone, as you mentioned. I guess there really isn't that 4 toughness threat right now.
Yeah, if it was instant speed and then, it was good against Butcher of the Horde, it was good against Whisperwood Elemental, I think the conversation's a little bit different. But a lot of the 4 toughness threats that you can kill have haste or effectively haste. So I'm not sure if Exclusive Firecraft is that efficient for these lists. Also, without Stoke the Flames and Lightning Strike, you can't just build a burn deck. Exclusive Firecraft is fine, but it's really good when you have a critical mass of those kind of effects. And if you're just playing with Wild Slash, you're not burning people out that frequently.
That was some of the appeal of the previous burn deck that did well at the Pro Tour. You had Exquisite Firecraft and you had Stoke the Flames. So you had 8 4-damage spells.
If people are trying to beat you just with Heroes Downfall effects and blockers, you had a plan B.
Yeah.
This deck has a different plan B, which is pump spells to either kill really fast or kill through blockers or just pump through blockers. It's a good way for me to segue here. Card I would look out for, I think it's got some legs in this format potentially, probably not as good as Titan Strike for these kind of decks, is Sure Strike. You're looking to play with a bunch of cheap creatures, you need to pump through Siege Rhino, you need to pump through Dragon Lord Ojutai. You can do that. Card to look out for. I think it's going to get a time in Standard to be a playable card for red aggressive strategies.
And if anything else, it can be kind of like that Titan Strength S card of just like a Lava Spike in some matches.
It's less efficient in that role, obviously. And with Abbott in the deck, you kind of want to push all the costs down so your Abbott reveals as many playable spells as possible. But I was thinking about, are there good ways for red decks to punch through good blockers? This card's effective at doing that. Siege Rhino and Dragon Lord Ojutai are problematic blockers, and this card's very good against those cards.
One thing that's got to be said about the red decks of the format is you just have to build your deck differently now. Like, the cards aren't there to build it how it was before. You just don't have the burn spells. So, yeah, you probably do have to go towards pump spells now. And it's a little bit different, but we've also seen that be successful. We talked about yesterday on our flight over, Rebel Belt Maka.
Right.
That was a card, you didn't really have any intentions of hard casting that thing, but that was a trick that people knew was in the format, and guess what? It was still good.
Exactly, because they can't say no blocks, take a bunch of damage, and you have a Lava Spike in your hand in the Maka,
Yeah.
So with Abbott being part of the format, it just might be too inefficient alongside that card, but if you're looking to punch through blockers, it's an option. And for the red-green decks, you have access to Become Immense, so a little less of incentive there because Become Immense just has a lot more raw power. But if you're looking to play mono-red, or maybe you're looking to play a red-black deck because Forerunner of Slaughter and some other cards are kind of attractive.
I haven't seen that one yet. I have to imagine we will at some point.
It's a really good deal, It's no guarantee of anything, but...
Paynter's going to mulligan to 6. Takes his free scry. Top card goes to the bottom. We're underway here with the monster. Swift Spear in game number 2. Demars will fall down to 19. He'll take a draw step. Gotta use that new scry rule. I like it, though.
It's a slightly awkward rule, and the upside is you get fewer non-games. So, depends on what you value, but I think most players value having more games. More games that feel like games.
Yeah, no, I do. There's Zurgo. Pass that turn back. Paynter draws a Zurgo of his own. 2 copies of that card in his hand. Might be casting a Wild Slash here. He's going to go with the Zurgo instead. Pass the turn back. Surprised to see him lead off with Swift Spear this game as opposed to Zurgo.
Well, I think that I believe he scried to the top, if I'm not mistaken.
He scried top card to the bottom.
Oh, top to the bottom,
Yeah.
and then drew, okay.
And then drew Zurgo for the turn.
Yeah, typically I lead off with the non-haste threat and keep the haste threat back for one big turn, assuming that the damage is about the same. And Zurgo's probably worth more points anyway, so.
Demars going to sacrifice a Bloodstained Mire. Down to 18, he's going to go. He'll go with a basic Mountain.
Demars always very careful about sequencing.
Yep. Kind of the vintage roots, I have to imagine. Don't want to get anything wrong in that format.
No, it's not a lot of margin for error.
There's Hangerback Walker. That's from the sideboard. I'll get a counter. Now Zurgo going to come into the red zone. 18 all as we head back Painter's way. See if he can find that second land. He did. It's a copy of Windswept Heath.
The problem is that his hand is really saturated with red cards. I don't think he can really afford to fetch a forest in this spot. I think he's just got to get a Cinderglade into play tapped. Even if he can only play one spell this turn, it just frees him up to play several spells a turn going forward.
Yeah, it's kind of that push-pull with the Battlelands.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to enter the battlefield untapped, but you know what? I need the red and the green mana.
A forest does nothing for Painter's hand.
Yeah. There's Wild Slash. You know, take care of the Hangerback Walker before it starts to grow out of control. A little bit more extra damage dealt because of the Prowess trigger. And now he's just going to pass the turn back. Demars with a Thopter and a Zergo. Dragon Fodder in hand. He'll take a draw step. Picked up an Abbot. There's a Foothills, so sacrifice that immediately.
And that to me is the big thing here for a Tarka Red, as you see him fetch here for Cinderglade, is just how much better the mana's got.
Yeah, no more of the Temple. Mana Confluence was a little bit painful, but it certainly helped.
Sure, but you know, you had to play with a Temple, you had to play, you know, only 4 fetch lands because there's only one in Wooded Foothills, like you get a mountain and a forest.
Yep.
Now I'm not even sure, to be honest with you, that a forest is entirely necessary. You might be able to get away. It's a little bit risky, but you could conceivably build this deck with nothing but red lands.
Demar's going to play a Monastery Swiftspear. Dragon Fodder will bring 2 goblins to the battlefield. And here are the attacks. Paynter going to predictably search up a Cinderglade of his own to help fix his mana. A little bit behind right now, though. He might have to start to turtle up a little bit, or at least try to.
I think it's hard to turtle up in this kind of matchup because there's just so many pump spells in both decks. I think Painter has still got to keep trying to be aggressive here.
Well, the thing about this deck that's kind of interesting is he does have the ability to just kind of 1-2 punch you out of the game.
Exactly.
And if he had tried to land that turn, he might be able to get it done with like Swiftspear plus Battle Rage. So, kind of interesting. And Zergo and Swifty are going to come in. Here's a Tarka's command.
So Tarka's command in this spot in this spot is worth 6 points, 7, 8, 9. So Demars survives this.
I guess the hope here, if you're Devon, is you hope not to die. But it looks like this happened before blocks this Atarka's command. So,
all right. So it's only worth 3.
yeah, it's not worth very much now. Now Paynter will pass the turn back over to Demars. Mountain the draw here for Brian. Looks like he's going to start off with Abbott. That's going to trigger. That'll bring a mountain.
As you mentioned, with all the pump spells in these decks, it's by no means safe for Demars.
No, not at all.
In a typical red matchup, with Demars having a little bit of card advantage and a healthy life total, you'd feel like this game's over. But there's enough combo draws that can be set up here where that's not the case.
Devon has Titan Strength and Temur Battle Rage in hand. You do that on a Swiftspear. That's what, 12 trample damage?
So 2 prowess triggers plus 3 is 5.
Plus base power is 6.
Times 2.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of damage.
Yeah. Very nice to do it with in the upkeep with Titan Strength too, because you get a scry for your trouble.
Which I will see if Devon wants to do it that way. I would hope. Looks like he's just going to draw a card. Picked up another copy of Titan Strength.
I think that's War Name Aspirin in hand, not Battle Rage.
That makes it a little bit worse. No, it's a Battle Rage.
Oh, it's a Battle Rage?
Yep. 2 Titan Strength, Battle Rage, and Zergo, the grip. Here come the attackers again.
I feel like Demars probably has to block the Swift Spear here.
Looks like he might be agreeing with you. He's reaching with the Abbott. He's just deciding on what he wants to block. The interesting thing here is that Demars is playing a similar deck, so he knows what can happen because he has the same tools available. No, it looks like he's going to block Zergo. Titan Strength.
I mean, this only sends Demars down to 1.
Yeah, it's not lethal. Titan Strength again.
I think Demars may have him covered on the way back because I think Demars has a Titan Strength in his own hand. That's worth 4 points plus 4 power worth of attackers. So a solid block here from Demars as he got Devon to empty out the hand here and not die.
Yeah, he's not dead. He's as close to dead as can be, but he's not dead. Abbott and Zergo will trade. Demars will fall down to 1. And he will untap, take a draw here. Chandra was the draw, but Titan Strength should finish it off here.
Yeah, it's 4 plus 4,
Yep.
assuming we got light totals right.
Yeah, and that's going to do it. Brian Demars is going to win this match here over Devon Paynter, 2-0. The Atarka Red Mirror goes to Brian. And with that Titan Strength, he'll move on to 5-0 here.
I don't know, fast, furious. I think the most actual important card of that game was probably Demars' Hangerback Walker, honestly. Forced a turn out of Paynter, gave him a threat left over. Could have been used as a trump blocker at various points, got to apply more pressure with it. But, you know, Demars made his land drops a little bit more smoothly, got out to a better start, and Paynter died with a lot of resources left over in his hand.
Hey,